Welcome to the Unapologetically Prioritizing Peace video podcast channel, where we will discuss the revolutionary concepts of achieving success without sacrificing your well-being. I'm your host, Carla Hunt, CEO and founder of Prioritizing Peace. You can achieve your success without sacrifice. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification button so you know when the next video podcast has been released. I want to welcome my special guest, Lizzie Cole, registered nutritionist, wellness coach, and qualified fitness instructor from England, specializing in fat-free weight loss and self-love. And she is recently married, so it's Lizzy Cangro now. That's formerly Lizzie Cole, as I mentioned. So thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So food is one of our most basic needs, yet a lot of us don't eat well. And going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs from our episode 10, food is at the very first level of our physiological needs, and many of us skip meals, eat unhealthy, and more to the bigger underlying issue is that we don't trust ourselves to make good choices when it comes to our nutrition. Your body carries you throughout the day, and we don't even recognize how important it is to nourish our bodies and our minds, as it is the baseline support system that literally gives you the ability to do all other things. And it provides us our energy, brain power, and movement. Lizzie and I are going to open up the discussion about trusting your gut with food. What are some of the signs that show us that we're not trusting ourselves with food and nutrition?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's super common for people to come to me and say, "Hey, what do I eat?" And that is a number one sign of not trusting yourself with your food, right? So I feel like a lot of us actually intuitively know what we should be eating and have some basic knowledge of nutrition, but there's that lack of confidence. And that lack of confidence can manifest in lots of different ways. For example, as I say, lots of people come to me and say, "Hey, like, help me with my nutrition." But it all comes down to having an anxiety around food. So that could be worrying about eating too much, worrying about eating too little, worrying that we're not getting all of our nutrients, and then seeking out advice either from a qualified professional like myself, or worse, going to online to magazines, going to social media, trying to get that information yourself. And that can be pretty dangerous, in fact. And that's kind of my experience from not trusting myself with food. So that's actually how I became a nutritionist, which is which is ironic, right? Because now I see that a lot in my practice. So I'm very passionate about making sure that people do trust themselves with their food.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit more about your experience?
Yeah. So when I was 14 years old, my granddad died all of a sudden from a heart attack. Now, he was actually at the time going through chemotherapy, and he had Parkinson's. So he was pretty sick. And but his heart attack came very suddenly, and everybody was super shocked and very distraught, obviously. But at that point, I was a naive 14-year-old, and I thought that I had somehow contributed to his death, because a couple of days before, I had actually made him his favorite type of cake. It's called a lemon drizzle cake, very popular in England. But I'd made him this cake, and I was like, I want to make him feel better. Like, I'm going to make him his cake because he'd just gone through chemo. But then when I found out he died, I was like, oh my goodness, somehow like I poisoned him or something had gone wrong. So I felt personally responsible for his death. And I didn't ever kind of speak to anyone about it. So nobody was there to kind of, reassure me or educate me that this was absolutely nothing to do with what I'd done. But I began to research what healthy eating looked like. And I soon realized that cake was a bad food. And I vowed never to be ill like my granddad. So I started researching even more. And the more I researched, the more I didn't trust myself with what I was eating. So I became incredibly sick. I lost a ton of weight, and I actually, I developed an eating disorder, and that lasted 10 years. And really, like, through that experience, I was kind of taken through this path of, first of all, you know, having control of what I was eating and not trusting myself. But then when I went into hospital, they were telling me to eat the cake and taking away my power and my control of what I was eating. So one moment I had control over what I was eating, and I was being told, you know, you have to eat all of this fruit and vegetables and like restrict cake and not have this and not have that. And then I was put in hospital, and they were telling me the exact opposite. So I got very confused even then when I was recovering. So years after I first got diagnosed, I actually decided to take my power back and train as a nutritionist. So I started to learn from the professionals what a healthy, balanced diet looked like. And the more I learned, the more empowered I became. And that's essentially how I started trusting myself with my food again.
Yeah, it's a very powerful story, the way you took your power back. And I just really want to add to your story that you were diagnosed with an eating disorder. And I think a lot of us have really unhealthy relationships with food, but we don't qualify for an eating disorder. And I think that that's where like a lot of gray areas, like, well, I don't have an eating disorder, but like there's a very unhealthy relationship with food. And you and I have even talked, and I am well aware that I have had a very unhealthy relationship with food in the past. And I just recently started a new like workout routine. Like I started a new program. So like I finished one, I just started a new one. And then I was like, it's a high intensity, like hit workout with like density weight training. And then I was like, am I just like putting on muscle, or just like, am I just gaining weight? Like, what did I do wrong? Because I didn't want to like go into like this loop where like I just started like cutting calories and I was like under eating, because that was like where my mind was getting ready to go. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to like start eliminating like dinner and just eat like hard boiled eggs, is like literally where my mind was going. And so you and I had a conversation so that I like didn't go there, because although I don't have a diagnosable eating disorder based upon, you know, like the symptoms and qualifications and the patterns, like it's still really unhealthy and it does damage to your body.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think like there's eating disorders and then there's disordered eating, right? So
Yeah.
there's a spectrum. And I think a lot of people can relate to the experience of having disordered eating, even if they haven't experienced a full-blown eating disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you how can we start, you know, trusting ourselves with nutrition? You talked about how you empowered yourself and you took your power back, but how can we start empowering ourselves and trusting ourselves with food and nutrition?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So first of all, a really good exercise that I like to teach clients, just a really simple thing to do, is to trust your body with its hunger signals. So we all know what it feels like to be hungry, right? So I always say to clients, do you trust your body enough to tell you when it needs food? And often the answer is yes. So what I encourage as a first step is to rate your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I could eat my own leg, and 10 being I'm stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey. And just really rate where you are and monitor it throughout the day. And when you get into the kind of 4, 5, then that's your body telling you that it's ready, it's food time, it's ready to eat. So if you can start doing that and start kind of tuning into your body's innate signals, because your body is incredible. Like, I'm just going to say that right now, it is a really fine-tuned machine. And if you can really tap into what it's telling you and listen to it, then you can start trusting yourself with when to eat. And the more you do that, and the more you kind of like see that it's not going to cause you to gain weight, it's not going to make you sick, then the more you're going to feel empowered and the more you're going to start trusting it. So that's a really powerful exercise for sure. Sometimes we need a little bit more support, and that's when knowing where to look for that support is really, really powerful. So as I say, a lot of people seek out information to try and empower themselves. Now, what I recommend is, yes, there are some amazing resources online, but knowing who wrote the resource is really, really important. So always look out for a resource from a reputable source. So in England, the NHS and British Nutrition Foundation are really, really great. In the US, there's the American Dietetic Association. Those are some really, really great resources to kind of look up official guidelines. But then if you're just reading, say, for example, on Instagram or a magazine, also look for the person's qualifications. So if they are qualified, they should have some letters after their name. So again, in England, I'm a registered associate nutritionist, so I can put a nutter. I love it. It's just so perfect. A nutter after my name. It's Lizzy Cangro, a nutter. But like, that's a sign that I have qualifications. In the US, similarly, RDN, registered dietitian nutritionist, that is a sign that they've trained as a nutritionist or dietitian. So always look out for that if you're seeking more advice about nutrition, which sometimes it's needed, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a great point to look out for the individuals who are actually qualified. I think there's a lot of individuals on the internet right now that are doing the fads. So they're just very, you know, I don't have better word than other than like an Instagram TikTok sale kind of thing, where they're just like, drink my diet tea and you'll lose, 30 pounds next week, which a lot of people want that quick fix. But like, if you don't mind talking about like how fads are, more damaging than they're helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's not to say that people who are out there who aren't qualified don't care. Some people really do want to help, but they just don't have the information available to help you properly. But there are a lot of companies out there, especially not just individuals, who want to sell you products to make money. And this is a huge bugbear of mine, because essentially what companies want you to do is they want you to buy into the lie that you're not enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not strong enough, you're not, I don't know, healthy enough. And oh my goodness, look, here's a product that helps you become that. And that, in a sense, is discouraging us from trusting ourselves and going, okay, I'm good enough how I am, like I am knowledgeable enough how I am. And that is costing us our time. It's costing us our money. It's so expensive, some of these things, oh my goodness. And it's also costing us our mental well-being. So fad diets are, prevalent on the internet for sure, and it's mainly a marketing ploy to get you to buy into this misconception that you're not enough. And fad diets, they can work. Like in the short term, you might see some results, but in the long term, they're just not sustainable. For example, the big one is the keto diet right now. Now, the keto diet works on the premise that when we don't have carbohydrates in our diet, which is our body's preferred source of energy, our body starts using fat as a fuel. Now, that in the short term can mean that we lose a lot of weight, because when we deplete our body's reserves of carbohydrates, we actually release a lot of water with that. So carbohydrates per molecule hold on to 4 molecules of water. So when we burn through all of that carbohydrate, it releases a lot of water. And when it releases a lot of water, we release a lot of weight. So it's not necessarily fat that we're burning, it's just water weight. But then when we start burning through our fat, then we can experience things like brain fog or performance declines. And this is because we're not giving our body its preferred source of energy, which is carbohydrates. And that can suck, but it's also really unsustainable because guess what? When you go out for pizza with your friends, there's not going to be a keto option on the menu for you. There might be, but it's going to really, really restrict your quality of life. And food isn't something that we should just use as a tool to punish ourselves with. It's something that is there to be enjoyed. It's a social thing. There's a lot of cultural ties with food. We use it to celebrate with, and it's something that we should enjoy and embrace and trust ourselves with. And these fad diets are kind of encouraging us to do the opposite.
I absolutely agree. I know that I've done some of the fad diets, and it wasn't until I did a lifestyle change that the results started sticking. And that's how I really understood that it was just a fad, because I did the yo-yo where like I would lose 30 pounds, but then I would gain 80. And I was like, well, this isn't working. But once I really did an intentional lifestyle change of where this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm going to continue to do consistently, and talk to an actual nutritionist, that the results, became permanent.
Yeah, and I see that again and again, and it's from both a kind of psychological perspective, but also from a biological perspective. So when we lose weight too quickly, our bodies find mechanisms like our hunger hormones don't have time to adjust to our new weight. So we might lose a ton of weight really quickly, but our hunger hormones are still up at our old weight, telling us we need to eat more, which is why a lot of people find that they might lose weight, but they are starving hungry and they want to eat, and that's because our bodies haven't adjusted yet. So it can be really, really dangerous to our health and our mental well-being, as well as slow our metabolism down. I see that a lot in my practice. So clients going on yo-yo diets, they can become chronically their metabolism slows down chronically, so it takes a while for them to readjust. So even if they're going on like a 800 calorie diet, they're still not seeing themselves lose weight, and that's because their metabolism has slowed down so much by this yo-yoing over time.
Yeah, I think that's huge, where like a lot of times you're like, well, I've decreased my calories significantly, but like I feel like I've plateaued. And I think it's a scary feeling, because you're just like, well, how much more can I restrict myself? And then that starts going into like a danger zone of like, you can only restrict your calories so much before you do actually hit a danger zone for yourself and your actual, needs to intake calories. So you really have to be able to find a good balance and actually do like a lifestyle change and allow yourself to have your metabolism like balance back out and get back into like a good groove.
Definitely. And it sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and that's where trusting yourself and trusting your body that it will be okay comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also comes into play about, what you're putting in your body too. So if, we're just putting junk into our body, and I like to use the metaphor with a car. So if you bought a Maserati, you're not going to put regular fuel into it. You're going to have to get the premium fuel. So, if you're thinking about your body, we can't just put, all processed junk food into our bodies. We're going to have to, actually get some, fresh fruits and veggies, and actually, get healthy foods. Do you have any
Absolutely.
recommendations on some foods that we should be putting in our bodies?
Yeah, and again, it's all about balance. So I always say it's great to try and include a good source of slow release carbohydrates, a lean source of protein, and healthy fats at every single meal. So that might look like, I don't know, a piece of whole grain toast with an omelette and a side of veggies. And when you're cooking the omelette, you use olive oil. So always making sure that you've kind of got a balance with your nutrients. If you're not sure about, you know, what a good source of carbohydrates are, protein and healthy fats, then just, you know, reach out to me. I think you're going to provide some links at the bottom of this episode.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to answer questions about kind of like what food sources are good for what nutrients. But generally that balance is really, really important. Another thing that I find helps is, okay, so we want to make sure that we're fueling ourselves in a way that honors our body. And sometimes that means, okay, going for the basic option. So your basic option might be the cookie. And sometimes it's okay to have the cookie, right? So sometimes you're at a birthday party and, you know, your 5-year-old cousin is like, do you want a cookie? And you're like, oh, that looks really good. Sometimes that is the healthiest thing to do. But other times we want to move up the pyramid and go to the better option. And the better option might, in this example, look like a couple of squares of dark chocolate. So that is a little bit healthier than the kind of basic processed cookie. But you could do the best option, which is even further up the pyramid, which is, I don't know, a piece of fruit. If you're craving something sweet, piece of fruit is the best option. Because it's got all the vitamins, fiber, and antioxidants that your body is gonna need to function at its best. So as I say, you can kind of like use that pyramid structure, basic, better, best, to kind of think about your food choices. And remember, it's always a choice. Like, you have the power to choose. It's up to you. It's your body. So again, you know, choose wisely, because you are fueling that Maserati. And a great way of kind of like encouraging yourself to go up that pyramid is to have that high enough self-esteem to realize that you are worth it. And that's something that I see a lot with clients, is like, oh, and my mom. I use this example in my book. So my mom always used to let my dad and I, when we went food shopping, choose the whatever option we wanted, the healthiest, the best quality, whatever we wanted. Whereas she would always have the basic ready meal, and you know, she would just get by and put us first. Well, that is not conducive to her health. And I would use this as an analogy for anybody who wants to fuel their bodies correctly, is that we need to actually have that confidence in ourselves that we are worth investing in and prioritizing ourselves and our health. Because without our health, we ain't got anything. Last year proved that. I'm not going to say the word, but I think it's really, really important to have that principle of prioritizing yourself and prioritizing your nutrition and health. And that's a way of kind of like helping us choose that better option and best option as we go up that pyramid.
I absolutely agree. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about your book?
Oh yeah, of course. I love talking about my book. So my book is 12 Rebellious Acts for Women to Achieve Unconditional Love for Themselves and Their Bodies. It is going to be published in December this year. So I'm still in the process of, you know, getting it out into the world. But if you are interested in keeping up to date with the book and kind of getting your hands on it, learning about these rebellious acts more, then head to the link. I think Carla's going to post it below on my website, where you can claim your free bonus chapter right now before it gets published, and stay up to date with when the book's actually going to come out. So I'm really excited, and I actually go into more detail about trusting your gut. That is one of the rebellious acts I talk about. So it's very fitting for today.
It's perfect. Very fitting. I'm excited about your book. Like, I'm so pumped about it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
If there is one thing that you could leave the audience with, what would it be?
I think that you are worth putting yourself first and your health first, and that you have everything inside of you to do that. You don't need to go looking for answers from anybody else. It all starts from within. Yes, you can have support from other people, but really it does come down to trusting your own gut. No pun intended.
And we are definitely going to put the links below on where we can find your website, get that free chapter from your book, and connect with you on social media. But if you want to go ahead and tell us like what your handles are on Instagram and on Facebook, let us know where we can connect with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Nutrition by Lizzy, Lizzy with a Y. I'm on there regularly, posting kind of tips and tricks, as well as some information about my book, about how we can work together. And I'm also on Facebook. So my business page is, again, Nutrition by Lizzy.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for your tips to helping us trust our guts.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much again for having me. I'm excited to connect with lots of people and hear any questions that anybody has.
Yes. If you have any questions about nutrition, please reach out to Lizzy. She will be more than happy to help.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carla.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Unapologetically Prioritizing Peace video podcast with your host, Carla Hunt. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a topic, please email me at hello@prioritizingpeace.com.